I can't see we're
What
live.
is going We are live now.
We're live.
Yes. What is up, Profitable Stylist? We are live. Here we go this week. We're talking about how to transform.
We are the profitable stylists. We don't know if we're talking to profitable stylists.
We are speaking. Well, people listening are going to become profitable stylists.
We should probably say, what is up, future profitable stylists?
All you future profitable stylists, thank you so much for watching, where we help you with the latest tips, tricks, trends, and guides
and
on
magic.
How to grow. Magic, yes, magic.
Yeah. So, what do we talk? What was our official title for today?
How to transform your styling skills in just 7 days. However you can get your hands in the screen.
Yeah, I'm doing this from home, and I'm using my phone, and the screen is backwards, so I don't know which way to move to stay centered. It's so ridiculous. But I'm going camping with my son. It's going to be so much fun. But you know, this topic is very, very current for me because I'm training a new girl who works in our office, Alexis. Have you met Alexis?
I have.
So she's probably watching this now because she does some editing to this at some point, or takes little snippets out of it. And we're going through a type of training that I do. And the bottom line is to do something over and over and over again. But I'll talk about the mental state of that in a little bit. But one that she mentioned to me recently was round brushing hair. She said, I hated it. She was bringing a mannequin home and doing it. And I said, well, then why do you keep doing it? Why didn't, I'm playing devil's advocate in the real devil. I said, then why are you doing it? Why didn't you just quit and tell me you don't want to be a hairdresser anymore? Just give up like most people do. And it'd be easier that way. Just don't do it at all. And she goes, just quit? And she goes, I was determined. I said, maybe because you're paying that board some money, you got a little vested interest, you told people you're going to do it. And she's like, yeah. And so it's interesting that you almost have to like force yourself by being committed somehow, like tell other people, I'm learning how to. Then when it gets hard, you're like, oh, shoot, I got to follow through because I told my mama that I was going to do this. I can't quit now. So getting held to some standard, that's a good mental place to start, because some of these skills are not easy to get. I remember round brushing hair was one of the hardest for me because I just never did. I never had long hair as a kid. I always had short hair, and I never did anything with a round brush ever. I never played with Barbies. I never tried to brush their hair. I barely even used a brush in my life. And so somehow I end up in hair school because I didn't want to work outside and I didn't want to go to college. So I end up with these tools in my hand, and some tools were similar to woodworking that I did in shop in high school. And I was like, oh, I get this tool, but some of them, no, I didn't get. I get a flat iron because I understand heat and pressure and timing and how hot it needs to be to change. But that round brush took a certain skill to keep spinning that thing in your hand and the brush and all coordinating it. And after a few times, she said, I'm finally getting round brushing and it's fun. And that's kind of the motivation, right? If we've ever done anything that was hard, what?
Yeah. That aha moment when it finally clicks,
So if we've ever done anything that was hard, you got to kind of remember that too. If you ever done anything that was hard and you got good at it and you felt good about yourself, that's kind of got to be that internal motivation also. And unfortunately, there's too many people out there that have never pushed through to get some of those things done. So they don't have that. But if you have, or you've had parents make you do something like me, I make this boy of mine do karate. And now when he talks about quitting, I'm like, oh, okay, you want to quit? And he's like, no, I got friends there. I'm really good at it. I'm winning first place medals. He gets there and wins medals, and it was all worth it. He's like, I'm the best in the whole state. And hopefully this year we'll be best in the world at some things, but we haven't got there yet. But when he gets there, it'll make it even harder to quit. So we were talking before we got on here. Do we talk about brand new hairdressers or licensed hairdressers at all? Or are we talking to the general public? And I think it could kind of be for both. But I think for the most part, we're going to focus on hairdressers or stylists, probably closer to getting right out of school or newer or worked in a chain salon and never got some of the skills because they went in and they just did the thing that chain salon is known for. And so you're kind of trying to, your light went out. You're trying to like widen your skills. And I developed a program years ago because that was such a problem for me. I would have stylists come in and they didn't do certain things. So I came out with this list, a training sheet, we call it. And we take one mannequin head. And I thought, first of all, I'm thinking, how can I get the most use? We'll use another or a second or a third head if we have to. But how can we get the most use out of this mannequin head? And we'll start with just maybe some shampoo and blow drying and styling that long messed up hair. Then we'll fix it up a little with a one length haircut and then blow dry, curled under, flipped up, straight, flat iron. You learn, use some tools. Then we'll do some long layers and then a little bit more layers. And before you know it, we're doing a graduation in the back, then a men's haircut. Then we're doing a shave the sides, a ball fade. Then we're doing a flat top somewhere in there with a men's haircut in between. But each one of those steps of cutting, we're also stopping and spending some time doing another blow dry and style and maybe another cut. This head is changing colors along the way also. It's not like bleaching virgin hair by any means, but we might try some highlights, all over bleaching, all over color, change different sorts of color and highlight techniques, mostly for the skill and the technique, not for what the outcome is, because these mannequins aren't the best for coloring necessarily. But we're getting some technical skills, some speed built up, and we're going through what I would call the on-stage way, because my salon's named On Stage. And so, you know what? You don't have to do everything the way we do it, but if we share clients a little bit, this is kind of the way we all put a basic full highlight in, or this is how we shampoo hair. So we go through that head, but I like what you were saying before we got on here. You go back even further and bring it back to conversation and consultation.
I think that's one of the weakest parts. A lot of the problems from styling comes from communication or lack of communication or a miscommunication. Everybody's always droning on and on about the consult. But if your consultation is weak, I've seen hairdressers do the best, the most beautiful haircut and style. But it wasn't communicated properly to the client. So the expectation by the time they got turned around in the chair, it was completely different than what they had in their mind. It was such a beautiful cut, but the client don't like it. And conversely, the vice versa. I've seen somebody talk out of their butt such BS, and they did the most crap job. But because they faked it till they made it, they spoke the most crap out of their butt. The client afterwards is kind of looking in the mirror and confused because they look like a Raggedy Ann doll, but the stylist is like, wow, look at you. And the client's like, yes. And I've seen them talk somebody into liking some, oh my God, disaster train wreck of a hairstyle.
I've had some stylists that are really great at foil highlights and blow drying and styling, but they cannot cut hair. And you wouldn't know it because they style it so pretty that the cut, they style so pretty that the cut isn't really seen until the client goes home and shampoo their own hair. And then they take pictures and send them in and ask, what? Well, we didn't see it. Your hair was all curled up. So that we curl all our mistakes these days.
Yeah. So that's one of the things when I make them do is, the first day I make them, we don't do any hair on the first day of training. We only have conversations. So we work on conversational skills. What are things you should ask? What are things you shouldn't ask? Why you should ask? How you should ask? And then we play this game. How long can you keep a conversation going without answering? You have to ask a question, and then the other person has to respond back with another question, and then you got to respond back with another question. So that's the game, is you see how long you can keep going with only asking questions back and forth to each other.
And what does that do?
What's that?
And what does that do? What's the reason for that?
It builds, you never know what somebody's going to say. So you need to have your mind open-minded enough, and you need to be able to pivot on a swivel really quick. So it keeps your impromptu, it keeps your imagination opened. Because if you only ask a question and get an answer, you just did yes, no, you got a no, or you got a yes. Now what? You got to play 20 questions to pull some information out of that person. It's an interrogation at this point. It's not a conversation no more. Then you're not having a hairdressing session. You're just having a, like you should be like one of them police shows or something, who did it?
On a light.
Yeah, right. Where were
What do
you?
really want?
So that's the reason
why.
Give
me some examples of some questions that might go back and forth.
What are some of the things you would like to hear as an example?
Well, I guess you're going to be doing well, we could keep it simple, be a haircut, and go back and forth with some haircut examples.
Is there a particular haircut in mind that you want to talk about?
I want a bob.
See, you did not. You just gave a response. You didn't ask a question.
So, but if you're the hairdresser, you're the
No, I was just playing with you just now. I was just playing.
I get it. So if we were both playing the game, I just lost because I didn't keep the question going. But if you were just a hairdresser and I was the client, and I end it kind of easy like that, isn't that kind of what you're trying to teach also? If I end it with, I just want a bob. So
now, as the client, I just want a bob. As the hairdresser, you don't be like, oh, okay.
Right.
There are many, okay, I understand you want a bob. There are many kinds of bobs. Did you have a particular one in mind? And if you say no, then it's like, well, then I have to start giving you examples. There's the A line.
Anywhere from here to here, right? And then even graduate, right?
So now we start narrowing it in and honing in on what the client actually wants very quickly, efficiently, and easily without having to sit there with the awkwardness of, what do you want? I don't know. Well, make a choice. Well, I think I want a bob. Well, okay, fine. Then I'll cut it. All right, let's go.
Oh, yes. Show me a picture.
Show me a picture, and that's the whole thing. So then once they get comfortable having that conversation with people, naturally things will start falling into place. And that's really one of the key things with communication is what I find. It's automatically makes you more confident too, because now you're going in with a little bit of a plan. And as long as somebody has an idea of what they're supposed to do or what's supposed to happen, it lessens the scariness. It lessens the fear of, what do I do next? Now what?
Right. And that's what I tried to do with, mine was mostly based on high-end services for the consultation, because people would get really nervous when the ticket was really high. They didn't know where to start. So I kind of started with some basics that anybody should want to know, but don't realize it. So if you take the fear out of it and just have the first few questions ready, you should hopefully know their name. But if you don't, we can start here. What's your name? Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm Eddie, and you are?
You are, right. Right. How did you hear about me? That should be the first question. It's a good icebreaker opener. It's nothing about hair. Hopefully it turns into how they heard about me has something to do with hair, hopefully, but maybe not. Maybe they just met my wife at a women's group thing, and she said, you should go to my husband and do your hair. He's good. They might not have ever seen my hair before, but they know, like, and trust her, because everything's about knowing and liking and getting referred from somebody somewhere. Even if it's just basic marketing, advertising, you put some pictures or video out there of your work and somebody saw it randomly. That's still something they had to like something about what you put out there. But the conversation should just always, like you just said, start with, I'm Bernard. What was your name again? I didn't catch it at the front desk. Be honest, And then, how did you hear about me? I just walked in and said, I'll take the next available.
The next person, and you were standing there.
Well, and that's worst case scenario. I just need a haircut so bad, and they said you were the only one that had time for me. Oh, so you really don't care? Because I would add a little humor to it there and be like, so you really don't care what happens to your hair today? You don't have any idea what I'm good at, bad at. What were you hoping to get today? I love that word.
Sarcasm and humor is the best way to nurture a relationship with somebody, especially if it's your first time meeting them. Nobody knows each other's personality yet. Nobody knows the tension or what they're allowed to say or not allowed to say or how they should say something. So, going extremely out there and just throwing some insane thing out there is fun. It's funny and it's fun.
And that only comes from confidence. So when you're brand new at it, you're really scared. You're never going to do that. And I get it. So, I mean, at least even if you are the only one and they're like, well, I just walked in and you're the only one who could do it. Well, lucky me. I'm so happy to help you. What were you wanting to get done today? What were you hoping to get done today? What,
Yeah, right.
because I like to say hoping, because I like to act like, you know what? I might not have enough time or the skill. I don't want to act like I am the best ever. I can do anything and everything in the world, because if you are here for a wedding updo, you're in the wrong chair. There's a small possibility that you just walked in and your sister's wedding is in 2 hours and you're just hoping to get a quick updo. It happens rarely, but it happens, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Are you kidding me? You didn't schedule this?" And,
Did you
and
not get to save the date?
that's worst case scenario. But usually it's like they start explaining what they want. What were you
Yeah.
hoping we could do today? This gives you a lot of outs. Like, let's hear it. Tell me. And they start describing the service and how they saw it on somebody else, whether you did it or didn't, or you did their friend's hair. And they get it definitely eases the stress in your life, because now you are starting to understand what they want, like you said. So I agree that the consultation conversation is huge. And you know what? If it can start on the phone before you ever see them, if it's a phone call reminding them of their appointment or even making their appointment, it can start right there. What's your name? I got to put it here in the computer. How'd you hear about me? Oh, really? What did you want to do? Because now, if you're the one making the appointment, you can make sure you schedule enough time to do what you guys are talking
Sure.
about, or at least guess how much time, or schedule a little too much and you can narrow it up later. Or for me, I'd rather have too much time than too little, until I got confident, and then I wanted to squeeze as many in as I could, because I knew that I could almost always finish faster than I thought, especially if I enlisted help, or assistants or helpers or whatever. But at first, just book more time, be safe, be careful, do 2 clients a day, and have a lot of conversation. So I think that's really good. And then for me, which was huge in conversations that happen too seldom, is talking about the money. Because the
Yeah.
money, they need to know, even if it's not exact. You can even say it's going to roughly be. But too often I've had people get to that front desk and they're just mad. She never said it was going to be $300.
Mhm.
Whoops. What did she say it's going to be? She didn't say anything. She described it, and I just couldn't imagine that it would take
Yeah, the sticker shock, right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could take that much money from me.
So even if the person did like it, now they're pissed. And so you just ruined a potential future business. And I understand it's awkward to ask people for money, because we're always told growing up, it's like, oh, put that down, oh, don't ask, that's rude, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a parental thing that we're taught from as we're children. But in a business setting, look, think about it. It's amongst the first thing everybody does when you're looking to go buy something. You look at the availability, then you look at the price, then you see how long it'll take to get it shipped, or how long it would take to go pick it up if you're going to go get it yourself, right? This is no different. We have to bring up the price.
Right. So you have to talk about the money somehow, and it can be done so many different ways. And I don't love the favorite out there. What's your budget? What's your budget for your hair? I don't think people budget much of anything, and so it almost is an insult. It's like, excuse me, you
Yeah,
budget
can
your
you
life.
afford this?
Yeah,
That's
can you
what you're
afford?
saying.
Assuming like that they're assuming you budget for everything. I budget. My whole life is very organized. I'm hoping yours is too. Oh, it's not, you loser. But I just don't like the word budget with a client, because I think it really talks down to them. I do want to bring up the money. And so again, I'm extreme, and I'm a little crazy in some ways. I like to really make them think a little. And I go about it a bunch of different ways. And so I might even say, well, I think it's time to talk about the money. Does it even matter? Because sometimes they'll say it doesn't. Perfect. Then you don't have to talk about the money. That's rare, but all right, we gotta talk about the money now. And if you hate talking about the money, just say it right then. Say, all right, we have to talk about the money because my boss said we have to. I hate this
Yeah.
part, but I don't want to get to the front desk and then you say, I didn't know it was going to be that much. And then they might say,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot. I don't know. I don't know if we finished talking about exactly what we're going to do. Each part of the service starts adding up money. you want a lot. You named, like you said, you want it cut, you want it styled, you wanted it 2 or 3 different colors. I described to you how we're going to do this. 2 different colors, roots a 3rd color. They're going to be, you wanted this rooted look, shadow look, whatever word you fancy color term you use that your friend had. And I like to ask for fun. I like to say, do you have a rough idea what you think it's going to cost? I love playing
you
that
love
game.
throwing that to them.
I love asking them. So what do you think it's going to cost today? And then, you know what's funny? Most of them say a price because I'm so confident in it. They'll say, they'll start off a lot of times with, oh man, I have no idea. I'll say, well, I bet you have a dollar amount you can't go over today. I just want to make sure I don't mess up and go over it. And they're like, well, I can't go over 300.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Well, perfect. It's less than that. Or shoot.
$299.
Well, see, I think people are more trusting than that. And I don't think people will. I'm not going to take advantage of them. I just know that it should cost about a certain amount in my head. I'm thinking, and let's say it was going to be 350 and they said 300. I'd say, oh, it was going to be 350. And many times they'll say, that's fine. I might not be able to tip you this time.
Hey, and you know what?
I would, and so then you have to decide. I'd rather be sure I don't want to charge 300 and maybe get a $50 tip. I'd rather charge 350 and get to 350. And I'll say, that's okay. You can catch me next time. So then I could say, well, it's only going to be 250, 260, 280. So perfect. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, or it's going to be give or take $20, $30 from there. I don't know if we're going to need a tone or tone twice or 2 different toners or mix extra color. So yeah, as long as you're getting in the rough ballpark of the amount, then I think it's helpful. So you got to just figure you out with money, and everybody's going to be different. What about you?
Everybody's going to be different. The thing I do with our newer stylists is we do the double pricing. So they can have service, they can have this version of the service, or they can have this version of the service. Generally speaking, if you tier it out and you give somebody 2 or 3 options, most people are going to stay somewhere in the mid range and move up to the high end. Or if you give them the option between the 2, most people will just say, to hell with it. Let me just do the more thing. Or sometimes I've had it where they'll start off with the lower end and then they'll work themselves into the higher end service. So either way, all the way around, as long as somebody feels like you are having an honest conversation with them and they are being respected, that their buying power, their purchasing power is being respected, and you're not trying to suck it out of them, you'd be surprised how willing somebody is to spend money, even if it pinches them and they're a little tighter than what they were prepared for.
They will. So let's get back to the exact topic of the video, if anybody is still watching us, because I want to cover a couple of things that I do and I know you do because I've seen and heard you do it. I think we do it for different reasons, but I've got a friend who has a karate studio. You guys have seen him on here before. Jude, he travels the country, the world, teaching karate.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And it was interesting that one of his camps, he does camps to learn stuff, and he loves some dark stuff, and so he's got a skull with no skin on it. Obviously no skin, but it's a skull, and it's called Rep Your Face Off. Like, do the reps until your face falls off. And of course, a faceless something is part of it. And that's when I started to change my style of teaching after I saw this. I repeat and practice and do things over and over, like the beaded topper, which the volumizer and the enhancer, the lace front one. I remember teaching you. I remember right before I taught you, I learned. And the guy who taught me, I didn't do exactly what he said, but I did a version of it. And he said, the way you're going to learn this, because I wasn't that good at it the first day, he said, the way you're going to learn this is to put it on this mannequin head twice a day for 2 weeks. And I was like, whoo, that's a lot. So I did it once a day for 1 week. But at that point, I was good. And I was like, oh. So what I did was I put this thing on this mannequin head. And that's the part, like with the round brushing, where Alexis got good. What I did is first of all, I'm doing a mannequin. Who cares if I screw up? I'm not going to hurt her. She's not going to complain. She's going to stay in a dark closet till I see her next. She's not going to, should be no fear is how I feel. So you know how I go into it? My mindset is not like, God, I hope I do this good. I hope I'm fast. My mindset is, I got 3 hours this morning. That's the time I gave for it. It's going to probably only take me about an hour or less. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it bad. I'm not even trying to do it good because I don't want to put all that pressure on myself. I say, you know what? I'm
You
just
just got to
going in.
do it.
Yeah, I'm just doing it. And
Yeah.
I trust the process that after I got it in, I was even thinking I was going to put it on and take it off that day. But by the time I got it on the first day, I was like, I'm done. This was so freaking hard. I don't even want to do it again. So I'm just going to stop. And then what I do is I set a time each day, or I shouldn't say a time, when I got to work, because I didn't have to be to work at a certain time these days because I work from the office and my phone. And a lot of the work I can do on my phone wherever, like I'm home right now. So my goal was I do go to the office almost every day of the week, at least 5 days a week. And when I'm there, the first thing I'm going to do when I get there is do this beaded topper. And so what I did was I go in, I set up a tripod. I usually am there pretty early in the morning because I wake up early naturally. And I had it on that tripod. I pulled it out the closet and I got my tool and I remove it and then put it back on. I mean, I have to remove it. It's on. So I remove it. And so I got better at removing. And then I loaded up my tools, put the beads on, and I replaced it and put it on that. And the first time it was so crooked. There were bubbles and bumps in it. It was just terrible. And then I did it a second time and it was still pretty bad. and then I don't remember when, but by the third or fourth time, I was like, oh, I see the angle that I'm sticking this needle at. I'm pulling hair too close to here and it's puckering it. And then the other one, I was pulling the hair from too far and I was getting the hair at a bad angle to hold it. So I started learning like if I fold it down, the pocket or the hole is going to end up right here. That's where I need to be pulling hair from. So it just starts coming to you. And it's not things you can teach. It's not things that they could teach me. It was things that just come from experience. And how do you get experience? Repping your freaking face off. Reps. Now, I could choose to put it on, take it off all day long, and I'd get good by the end of the day or the next day. But I wasn't in a hurry. I didn't have a client. But for those of you that are getting ready to do an extension client, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days from now, I would be doing that service on a mannequin or a friend or my partner every day, maybe every other hour until I got it. I would just do it 4, 5, 6 times in a row. Put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off, and take the pressure away. Doesn't matter how good. Do it bad. Then do it bad again. Then do it bad again until it starts looking a little better. And you're like, oh, I'm starting to get it. You will just get better if you do it. So that's my biggest job right now is I deal with hairdressers around the country that call in and say that our extensions suck because they fell out, caused damage, they don't work. You know what is the most common thread with all these people that are complaining? It's the first time they've ever done them on a real person. That's the problem. And you know what a big part of that problem is? They've never put it on a mannequin ever. They watched the video.
They haven't practiced, or they did it once 6 months ago and now they're finally getting around to doing it.
Most of them bought the online training, bought a kit, and then watched it the night before they actually had a client and then thought, yeah, I got that with no practice at all. They're like, that looks so simple. I'll just do it on my client tomorrow. Then the client starts complaining and then the hairdresser starts complaining to me, or the client does too. And it's fine. I work through it with them. If that's the place that you want to start your practice on and you don't mind putting up with the complaining customer, that's not my style. I can't stand that. But if you want to have this complaining client, go for it. Now do her again and again and again, and you'll get better. But the problem is you do that one and you complain so much and you feel so stupid and terrible, you quit. And that's what happens. Too many people quit before they get good because they don't want to go through the practice. So you've got to practice it no matter what it is. Set a day, set a time, whether you just do it all day over and over or once a day. How bad? I feel like that is like a minimum, right?
Minimum is once a day.
Once a day.
Minimum is a once a day. Yeah.
That's got to be the easiest.
You also got to think about the reason why once a day matters is because This is something I talk about all the time. It's muscle memory. You have to commit to muscle memory. Your hands and your body have to remember what to do because you can't always trust your brain. And this is something that I always make a joke out of. I do it very lightheartedly. You got to think about this. How many times, you're like, oh, okay, I've done this 1,000 times. I got this, right? Then you go, as an experienced stylist, and then you go in, and the client might say one thing, and now they're in your head, and you're like, wait, now you're thinking about that one thing they said, but you're in the middle of performing the service. Now you're starting to second guess yourself on your own service that you've done 1,000 times. And you're like, I'm awesome at haircutting, but this time it came out asymmetrical. I goofed, or I've put in hair extensions 1,000 times, but this time I didn't put it in good enough. Whatever the service is, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So if you start psyching yourself out, at least at a minimum, your hands will remember what to do. I'll share this personal. When I was younger, we were dumb, young and dumb. So our mentors were smart enough to realize that we were all in our 20s and we were out drinking, and that's what you did back then. You went out drinking all night and you came in hungover. So that's all that our mentors did to us day in and day out. Before we were allowed to touch a client, we had to perfectly do a blow dry style, or do the haircut, or do the foil, the foil application, whatever the service was, because they knew that one day, stupidly, we were going to walk in still drunk or hungover. Our minds weren't going to be there, but at least our body, like a zombie, we were able to perform the service properly, and just, you can't trust your mind. You got to commit it to muscle memory. So that minimum of one a day, if you're an overachiever, doing it twice a day is all you need to do to be an overachiever.
Twice a day is a lot, whether
it really is.
Especially when you get into a blow dry style situation. Let's say we round brush the whole head with volume at the scalp. Alexis at first was doing that, and you know what the style looked like? There was volume at the scalp, and then it was real flat and then curled at the end. And she didn't understand what was going on in the middle, because she was getting that good volume at the scalp and then coming all the way out and getting the curl at the end. And the middle was just falling flat. So she didn't have the curve of the whole. And it was interesting to watch her styles go from looking like this to looking like more, I don't know, just fuller, more symmetrical.
Volume, yeah.
And some of these things, some of these mistakes I didn't make as a stylist, or I haven't seen other people do. So sometimes you just look at a head and you're like, it just looks wrong, and I'm not sure how you did that. and then I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, that's interesting. It's got volume at the scalp. That's where most people miss it. So you're getting something a lot of people can't get. But then you're not getting any volume in the mid strand, which is really weird. But then the ends curl under really tight. So I think, let me see you do it, because I think I know what's going on. And she put the round brush in there, and there was no wrapping around the brush in the middle. It was like curling the ends and then getting it up and off the scalp to get that base up and off the scalp to get the fullness there. And so as I was watching, I was like, oh, you're not able to roll that brush in and heat up the whole strand of hair and then cool shot it or back of the dryer and cool that off all the way through. So the whole shaft is rounded. I can't see the comments if there are any.
I was just going to say, this is a good comment. Winners practice until they get it right. Champions practice until they can't get it wrong.
That's RJ, huh?
Yeah, buddy.
I've heard
it. But it's true. I mean, you look at any sports analogy in any way. Darren actually told me this. Darren told me this 15, almost 20 years ago now. Said that even the professional players, the sport team players, doesn't matter what sport it is, they practice 40 hours a week or more for a 1 or 2 hour game on Sunday. They practice all week like a full-time job and then some with overtime just for a quick hour or two on game day. And the person who practices the hardest, that's who wins.
Right.
That's your champions.
Yep. And what I always found interesting is some of the the best. God, I wish I remember exactly which one. I remember it was a basketball player guy one time. One of the stars or like best players was talking about how much more he practiced than everybody else. And it wasn't much. It was just an extra 15 minutes after practice. He did a little extra. And so can you imagine what that adds up to at the end of each week? Depending on if it's 5 or 7 days of practice, that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, it's almost an hour more than everybody else by the end of the week. But it might just, and the thing about that 10 minutes is when you're practicing with everybody else, let's say it's just an hour and you're practicing, maybe you're not a professional and you're doing it 40 hours a week. Maybe you're just doing it an hour in the evening after school or whatever, but you're practicing with the whole team. And so you're not getting personal practice. And so then you stop and you just throw the ball at the basket for 10 extra minutes. It's just all 10 minutes, or learning some new dribble technique. You get better at that one thing that you're practicing, and that's how you beat everybody else on the court. And I'm not a big sports guy, so I know some of my terminology might be off, but it's like anything else. I like that. You practice so you can't get it wrong. That's exactly what it is. I'll tell you what, Master Grayson is what we call Jude in the karate world. So Master Grayson, because he's got this level of achievement in the karate world, and with Carson, he's got the levels of difficulty are hard to put how do you put a number on it, or how do you gauge when can you add this particular throw up in the air, the bow staff spins in the air, he spins around and maybe catches it from between his legs or catches it at all anywhere. And so the moves have difficulty layers and levels, and it doesn't, you can't just level them, because some kids can do the harder ones easier than the other ones because of their
Sure.
So what the measurement is he says, throw this move and catch it. And if you can do it 20 times without messing up or missing, you can use it in a competition.
Okay.
So to me, he's like, that's the measurement for you. You're measuring yourself. Can you do something in a certain amount of time or amount of times? And so if you can catch it 20 times, we'll add it to your form, and then you'll be competitive. And that means you're hardly ever going to mess up, because that's the champion level, practicing till you just can't get it wrong. Because I'll watch these kids throw this bow staff in the air, spin around 3 times fast, and then catch it. And they don't all catch it perfectly. Sometimes I see them looking, and they're getting it where it's almost going to be missed, and they catch it here. Some of them didn't, they threw it a little slower, so they catch it before it gets that whole spin. But it's the things you can't teach, like me with the where to grab the hair. They start learning when they spin around. Sometimes they spin around and they're waiting because they threw it too high.
They spun around so fast. Yeah, right.
They spun around so fast and threw the bow staff so high, they're just waiting. But it still counts, because while they're spinning, they're starting to realize, like, oh, I threw it high. I could probably spin a little slower. And you wouldn't think that when it's all happened, like, boom, you're still adjusting in the spin, slowing the spin down, slowing the catch down, or knowing, like, oh, I overthrew. It's going to be here when I catch it. And they just do it, and it looks so smooth. But you start to notice the slight little differences, because you can adjust on the fly when you're a champion. And so that's what practice does for you. It gets you so good. That's how I can speak in front of a crowd now. We've done it so many times.
Oh, yeah.
We can answer most questions, but I was scared to death the first time.
That whole public speaking thing, even one-on-one, you'd be surprised how many people, forget about talking in front of an audience for a sec. Most people are even nervous talking one-on-one to people and giving a speech or giving a direction or giving us something. So that's another thing that I have them do and work on, is commentary. And while you're doing your services, instead of talking about the weather, talking about who's having sex with who, or whatever, conversation is being had in the beginning, oh, I'm pulling your hair this way and I'm cutting this angle because this is how it's going to shape your hair. I'm blow drying your hair this way because when you're at home, this is how you're going to have to do it so you can get this volume like this. I make the stylist run commentary and explain every single section they're doing over and over and over and over and over. So then they could just get comfortable with talking and doing exactly what they're doing. Sometimes you don't realize, just even talking to yourself, the fact that you're talking out the steps and you're hearing your own voice, saying something in your mind versus actually using your mouth, auditory, to say it out loud, and then having your own brain hear your own words formed. You're like, wait, what? What the hell did I just say? Why did I say it like that? No, no, no. That's not what I was thinking. It sounded so much better in my mind. It made so much more sense, blah, 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 whatever. As long as you're saying it out loud, if you can get to a point where you're comfortable saying it, then you're also comfortable doing it. And it comes to reinforce what you're talking about as well. And what we've been talking about this whole time, the repetition, the over and over, you start making the adjustments and you start realizing your limitation or how much more further you should be pushing yourself or you could be pushing yourself. You're getting yourself your own achievement. Creating your own achievements is the greatest accomplishment beyond getting an actual achievement from somebody else. You know, it's wild.
Until we get the Neuralink installed in our heads, then we won't have to talk at all. I can just be like, what do you want?
Yeah, right. Telepathy.
Mental telepathy.
Telepathy, yeah.
Or telepathy.
That's the word.
Works also. I don't know how Google is going to put that word at the bottom when they transcribe our.
You know what? Once we get the link, I'm gonna sound so smooth when I talk.
Yep, you'll sound smoother to me too. That'd be great. So, the last thing I want to do is go to the next level. So some of you guys think you're okay and you don't need to be stretched any at all. And I think that we all should be stretched a little. And what I want to encourage you to do is enter a competition. Enter or if you own a salon, have a competition between your stylists, even if it's a rental situation, just for fun. Bring in some outside judges, maybe a couple of clients, maybe not the clients of those hairdressers because they're gonna vote for their hairdresser. But you know,
do a blind. Don't say who did what. Just
that's a good idea.
Have people look and pick out.
That's a good idea. But it definitely stretches you a little. And that, again, is something you should go into being okay with losing.
Yes.
Because that's what competition's about. Most people don't do competition because they're afraid of losing. But you know what? That is another thing I've learned from Master Grayson. He tells all his students, you can't just go to your first competition and win. Competitions are like anything else. They're practice also. You got to practice a few competitions. Go just knowing you're probably going to lose. Don't even think about winning. Just go and do it. See where you place. And I felt that interesting. One of Carson's friends came to a competition and his mom was so happy about all his scores and they were so low. But me and Carson we've been doing this for a while. And I just went in from the beginning thinking he should be better than he's doing. I was just a little bit of an overachiever and that Michael Jackson dad, you know, I was just like, you can do better. What are you doing, kid? And so I was disappointed unless he was doing really good in the beginning. I had to really chill out. And so, and then he finally is starting to do good and I'm feeling more comfortable, but I'm looking back like I should have just accepted the low scores because that is part of the game. You start at the bottom. And then I see this mom come in and I said, how's he doing? I don't want to say any names. And she goes, he's doing so good. And I see the points. I'm like, he's not. What is the measurement here? And she said, I asked him before we went in, what was he hoping for? Because it's 3 judges and they all do somewhere between a 0 and a 9. They throw their fingers up, you know, and she gave a combined score of what he was hoping to get. And all he was hoping to get, I can't remember what it was if he got 9 points total, like 3 points from each judge, which is really sorry, you know, a low score. And he was getting 12s and, you know, 10, 12s and 13s. And so they were like, we're really excited. So I thought that was a more realistic starting point. He's like, you know what, if I get better, basically better than zeros. If I get a 2 or a 3 from each of 3 judges, I'm close to my goal and I'll be fine. If I get more than a 3, woo! And so I thought that's smart. That's a good smart place to start. If I get 1s, it's a starting place, you know?
Realistic expectations. You got to set minor goals. You got to set minor achievable goals. Too many people have this grandiose idea that I want to do this. And that's great. You should have grandiose
Short-term
ideas.
goals to get to that big one.
But yeah, how do you reach that? You ain't just gonna wake up in the morning, start running and get there. You gotta fall, you gotta trip, you gotta get back up, you gotta, serpentine back and forth. You gotta zigzag and get there. Eventually you'll get there.
So you don't get shot. That's why.
So you don't get shot. I know, you see where my mind goes.
You're saying serpentine. I'm like, you've been running from flying bullets, Eddie?
Ah,
we gotta end this
on the
now.
weekends.
Paintball wars.
Paintball wars. Hey, paintball was fun as hell.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm done. Practice.
So to recap it, work on your conversational skills. Be prepared to do repping your face off. Okay.
We're stealing that. I don't think he's got it trademarked.
No. Per Master Grayson, so before he like Chuck Norris round kicks our heads off. Yeah. And then be prepared to commit to each day, at least once a day, minimum once a day. You have
once a day. Yeah, one a day has been my motto for a long time, and almost anything and everything I'm trying to get better at or do. How I got it from the stupid vitamin commercial, the 1 a day vitamin. I was like, 1 a day. Well, that's an interesting concept. I even teach how to get booked solid. I don't know if that video's in this feed or not. How to get booked solid. You know how we talked about get 100, how many clients do you actually need? And I talk about the number and how many a person can actually do. If you did 1 an hour, you work 40 hours a week, that's 40. I don't know which way it goes, 40 hours, 40 clients in a week. And if you reschedule every 4 weeks, well, then you can only do 40, 80. And then eventually that, double that, it's 160 and you've got 4 weeks filled up with clients. How do you get to 160? 1 a day. If you just get 1 new client every day working 5 days a week, that happens in 8 months. You can do the math after we hang up on you, but 8 months, 1 brand new client a day, the 1 a day plan. It's not that easy, but it's very doable. I can go to Walmart. I can go to Walmart. I can go to Home Depot. I can go to Hobby Lobby and find 1 person to come to me if I tried real hard every single day to get 1 for tomorrow. And then today I get another 1 for tomorrow. 1 a day, 8 months, book solid. I gotta go. I gotta go camping, guys.
You go camping once a day, and in a week you become Bernard the Hunter.
It's gonna be 3 days. It's gonna be cold. Go practice.
Cold. The high in Chicago today is 3 degrees. That's the high.
Fahrenheit, right?
Fahrenheit. Yeah, the low is -11,
wow.
-12. So
wow.
I'm
freaking out because it might get down. It might be in the 30s at night here.
Whoa, you poor thing. You poor thing. Let us know what you guys do to improve your guys' skills. Share. Help everybody else out. Thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.
Look at you. Subscribe.